Wonder Woman 84 is the DC hero movie that made the odd choice to not only set itself in the 1980s, but tell the kind of ridiculous story you'd only find in an 80s movie. But it forgot one thing. 80s movies sucked. Hello, I'm the Script Monk, and welcome to the third of my iFix video series. Now, for the first one, I did Thor: Love and Thunder, and my second one, I did Suicide Squad, but please don't think I'm only going to be doing comic book type movies, because this time I really wanted to do Dial of Destiny. Then I saw my only option was to pay $19.99 for a digital-only copy, and I was like, screw you, Disney. So instead, I'm doing Wonder Woman 84. Because I got it from the public library and it didn't cost me nothing. It's hard to remember a recent movie that got as big a negative reaction as Wonder Woman 84. I mean, people hated this thing. And with good reason, because it just baffles all expectations. First of all, despite the title and trailer, it's not really a superhero action movie. In fact, there's not that much action in it. After a completely pointless 11-minute opening, followed by a montage that looks like outtakes from Back to the Future 2, and then a totally meaningless mall heist sequence so stupid it's like something out of a Saturday morning cartoon, we don't see another action scene until the 1 hour 20-minute mark. Instead, we get like a mystical phenomena detective type story, like an episode of Angel or Grimm or Kolchak. So the plot is all about a magical rock that grants wishes. Yeah, you heard me, a wish-granting rock, which is the kind of premise you'd only find in an 80s movie. Now that strains our ability to buy into this movie right out of the gate, because we're already dealing with a story about a semi-immortal pseudo-Greek demigod. And I hate to reference anything from Save the Cat, but that's double mumbo-jumbo. Double mumbo-jumbo is a warning that generally audiences are only willing to buy into one type of crazy fantastic element per story. If you start mixing and matching, things start to get stupid. So you can have a story about aliens, you can have a story about vampires, but Alien Dracula is a bridge too far. So, screenwriting lesson number 1, don't mumbo your jumbo. One crazy premise at a time. Oh, and by the way, in Save the Cat, Blake Snyder acts like he came up with double mumbo-jumbo all by himself. But after doing my video on Cat, I learned this idea originated from science fiction pioneer H.G. Wells. Cite your sources, Snyder! So anyway, without yet knowing the rock's a magical who's-he what's-it, schlubby geologist Barbara wishes to be just like Diana Prince, and suddenly she's all sexy. And Diana wishes to be reunited with her old boyfriend Steve Trevor, because she's been pining away for him ever since he bit the big one all the way back in 1918. Okay, can we admit that the DCU's Wonder Woman is just a ripoff of the MCU's Captain America? I mean, they're basically the same character, but at least Captain America has a good reason to still be hung up on Peggy Carter. I mean, to him, it's all still recent history. But you're telling me Wonder Woman never managed to meet another man in 66 years? Damn, Diana, I mean, you gotta get out there. You gotta meet people. You gotta get back on that horse. So anyway, The Rock brings Steve back in the body of some random dude, which seems weird and violating. And after getting laid for the first time since the Hindenburg,
oh, the humanity.
Diana thinks, maybe I should figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, the story's supposed villain, yuppie go-getter Maxwell Lord, somehow knows all about The Rock and steals it for himself. And since it's a kind of a one wish per person sort of deal, he wishes to have the power of The Rock, which is like a loophole to wish for infinite wishes. So now all Max needs to do is lay hands on someone and trick them into wishing for whatever he wants. But the rules of this thing are completely inconsistent. Sometimes Max gets something in exchange for granting a wish, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he can just snap his fingers and people do whatever he wants. Like, it has no effect on this guy, but then this spineless excuse for a president just immediately becomes his bitch. So, screenwriting lesson number 2. If you're inventing some fantastic story element, you gotta establish the rules of that thing and then stick to those rules. Don't just make it up as you go along or change things whenever it's convenient, or else the audience will call BS on you. By the way, there's a really easy way to defeat this guy. You just grab a hold of him and say, I wish you were dead. Anywho, Diane and Steve-O figure out all this wishing can mean the end of the world, because, of course it does. You can't have a movie like this without the world ending. So Diana has to chase down Maxwell in the White House so she can be all like, hey, stop doing that. Because she doesn't really seem to have a plan. But Barbara somehow gets into the White House and pulls a wrestling heel turn on Diana because she doesn't want to stop being a sexy badass, even though she knows the world might end. which is pretty typical for the screwed up priorities characters have in this movie. Case in point, Diana's wish for Steve is now draining her of her superpowers, so she needs to wish Steve away if she wants to save the world. But instead she's all like, no, I don't know how to meet another man. And he's like, dude, it's not that hard. So Steve disappears and we enter Act 3 where things get, what did Robert McKee call it? Ridiculous stupid. First, I guess that one wish per person deal is no longer a thing, because Barbara wishes to become Super Garfield, because I guess they had some leftover effect shots from the Cats movie. Yeah, just keep adding more jumbo to that mumbo, it's not like it matters at this point anyway. Then, I guess Max no longer needs to touch someone to grant their wish, because now he can just do the entire world at once through a television broadcast, while Wonder Woman just flounders around on the floor like a dork. Here's lesson number 3. Story problems are cumulative. If you have some small problems in Act 1, there are going to be bigger problems in Act 2A, even bigger in 2B, and Act 3 is going to be a total mess. So if it feels like the second half of your script is totally broken, you should probably look to the first 30 pages to find the root of your problem. I just want to add, the most hilarious part of this climactic sequence is when Diana breaks the fourth wall and seems to be talking to us directly, because it seems just like those stage productions of Peter Pan where they make you clap if you believe in fairies to save Tinkerbell. And somehow this works, even though the TV cameras weren't pointed at Diana and no one could have possibly heard her over all the wind, but still the entire world starts renouncing their wishes and the lasso of truth gets Max to give it all up just because he doesn't want to be a bad father. So I guess lesson number 4, don't pull your conclusion. So that's the end. Even though the world is still in chaos and Max never faces any punishment and we never learn what happens to Barbara, instead we get, I don't know, what is this? It's some promo for Gal Gadot's Christmas album? Yeah, Merry Christmas everybody. But all joking aside, the real reason Wonder Woman 84 fails so badly isn't just its goofy plot. A goofy plot can still work if it's got the right characters to go with it. I mean, look at Shazam. Shazam's pretty goofy and it works just fine. But while most of Maxwell's scenes are pretty fun, and some of Barbara's as well, anything with Diana in it is just boring. Even the action scenes are boring. And despite what the raging soundtrack is trying to tell us, it's really hard to care. And that's all the fault of the character at the center of it all. Diana Prince in this movie is a flat, dull, one-dimensional protagonist. She has no personality and rarely shows any emotion. Now, the Wonder Woman character is difficult to relate to in the first place, seeing as none of us are immortal super beings from a mythical island of Greeks. But this movie blocks any chance of identifying with Diana on a human level, as say certain versions of Clark Kent do, by keeping the character a total mystery. We're not allowed to share her perspective, we aren't given a window into her psychology, and her lack of emotions makes her impossible to empathize with or experience events through her. We know nothing about her as a person, nothing about her private life, or even what she's been doing for the past 66 years. The character is a total blank. But you know who is a relatable character? Who we do get to learn about and empathize with? Barbara! In fact, the first half of Wonder Woman 84 treats Barbara as if she should be the protagonist. She gets far more attention, she's the center of her scenes, and we're led to identify with her emotions, desires, and frustrations. And what's more, Maxwell is a surprisingly well-developed character. The slick, confident man we see on the outside completely clashes with the desperate, insecure person we find underneath. And despite being the supposed villain, we can relate to his desire for success, and genuinely feel for this guy who loves his son and wants his boy to be proud of him. And you know what? If we just ignore all of Diana's scenes and focus only on Barbara and Maxwell, we actually have the makings of a pretty decent 80s style romantic fantasy. Two likable losers get what they've always dreamt of, only to realize it's not what they really need. I mean, it's nothing original, but it's a tried and true story formula. Actually, it wouldn't be that difficult to remove Diana from the movie's first half, because all her scenes with Steve, while they're supposed to be cute and charming, do nothing to advance the story and could be completely removed. But when Diana does finally get involved in the plot, that's when things start going off the rails. Barbara is forced into the background while Maxwell becomes this villainous caricature. The focus shifts from being on these two characters to this goofy apocalypse narrative. And you know what? I'm just gonna say it. This might upset a few people, but this particular version of Wonder Woman in this particular movie just isn't very good at being a hero. She's impulsive and reckless. She never seems to have a plan for anything. She just throws herself at problems and hopes it works out, which is the reason why she fails. A lot. And when she starts losing her powers at the end of Act 2B, she just becomes dead weight. Ernest Hemingway once said something to the effect that we only see the true worth of a bullfighter after he's been gored. Time and again in great movies, we see the true qualities of a hero emerge when that character's at their most beaten and broken down. A real hero finds courage in the darkest moments, but Diana just becomes this weak, simpering sop. That's not heroic. Diana can't even make the tough decisions that define heroes as heroic. When the world's on the verge of collapse and she needs to wish Steve away to regain her powers, Diana refuses to make the necessary choice. Instead, it's Steve who decides for her, which actually makes Steve the heroic character. Even at the climax, Diana doesn't really defeat Maxwell. It's Maxwell who makes the heroic decision to give everything up for the sake of someone else. So is the real problem with Wonder Woman 84 Wonder Woman? Let's imagine for a second if Barbara saved the day. Barbara goes through a full character arc, renounces the error of her ways, and it's Barbara who risks her life to confront Max in the end. And she convinces Max to stop through all the wisdom she's gained. And wouldn't that be more satisfying? Wouldn't that be real heroism? So should Wonder Woman just not be in Wonder Woman 84? Alright, you want me to fix this movie? You want me to turn to something watchable? Alright, here we go. Barbara Minerva is an awkward gal who just wants a little love and attention.
Have you ever been in love?
A long, long time ago. You?
So many times, yeah, all the time.
Maxwell Lord is a down-on-his-luck dreamer who just can't catch a break.
There is no oil. There never was.
And all they both need is a little magic. Suddenly, Barbara's turning heads and's got a new spring in her step.
Thank God you're good in heels.
And Maxwell finds himself on his way to the top.
The well struck pay,
Which ones?
all of them.
And when these two meet, it's like a wish come true.
Can we go somewhere? Just me and you?
Yes.
But in getting everything they ever wanted,
Everything okay, Mr. President?
Barbara and Maxwell discover what they truly need
You don't ever have to make a wish for me to love you.
and learn the real magic is in being themselves and never turning into an anthropomorphic cat. This summer, get ready for the greatest Cinderella story
I like to party.
of the year 1984.
Room for one more?
If you can dream it, you can have it.
Starring Kristen Wiig, Pedro Pascal, and Gal Gadot in a very small and limited role. It's Wonder Wish, not affiliated with the DC Extended Universe. There, I fixed it.